But let us now talk to Alex Phillips, who is with us here, former MEP, of course, with the Brexit Party, now with Reform. Alex, a very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Nice to see you. Notwithstanding Just Stop Oil bursting in the door and stopping this interview taking place, let us talk about the migrant problem. I've been away for a few days, staggered to see the numbers game being produced by the Tory party, that apparently for a £300 round trip to Rwanda, they're going to pay $169,000. I'm not quite sure how this works.
Well, do you know what? When you look at how they say it works, it's Home Office processing, it's the money they've already given to Rwanda to help set up the accommodation. What they actually haven't factored into the calculation, this is astonishing, is the legal costs so far. Legal costs, of course, borne by the taxpayer.
Yes.
Having these constant human rights cases with immigration lawyers for each and every single migrant who is supposed to be on that very first plane to take off. And what I find a little bit cynical, actually, is there is not a cat's chance in hell that the Conservative Party didn't realise there was going to be a huge amount of litigation when it comes to this plan. But what it does, of course, is it enables the Conservative Party to use taxpayers' money a bit like a PR campaign. So they know that there's going to be all these legal battles. We're paying for them, and then at the same time they can point to everybody else and say, oh, it's the lefty lawyers, oh, it's, you know, it's the ECHR, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, because they don't have a sensible plan and strategy. What they really should do is bite the bullet and actually start turning back boats.
Well, sure, and also do what an Tory MP has written, the MP for Devizes, I think, this morning in The Sun, just saying, look, if you arrive here illegally, you will not be allowed to stay. It's not that difficult. Let's just make that statement, make it work. If somebody arrives illegally, as everybody who is coming on a small boat does, then that's the end, surely.
Well, of course, people coming over on small boats know full well they're not arriving legally, which is why so many throw their passports into the water. And when you look at the cohorts on those boats now, yes, there are always going to be genuine refugees and asylum seekers among a mix of people trying to get into a country illegally. But a vast quantity of those who abuse that system really don't fit either of those categories. They are people who are either coming here opportunistically to work in the black market, or worse still, are involved in some form of criminality or terrorism. And when you look at how Australia dealt with this, yes, it created international uproar, but Australia actually started to just say, if boats are coming to our country, into our territorial waters from elsewhere, and they are arriving illegally, we have the right to turn them back. Now, of course, this is going to upset a lot of people, but nothing would send out a clearer deterrent than seeing a boat intercepted and told to go back to France.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, yeah, whatever people might say about, oh, well, legal this and optics that, actually, if you wanted to deter those crossings, that is what needs to happen.
I mean, incredibly, I think it was just last week, before I went away, there was a court case where a judge had sent an illegal asylum seeker to prison, and as he was being taken down, as it were, he actually said, oh, if I'd known I was going to get locked up, I wouldn't have come. So, I mean, they have got the means to do it and the mechanism to do it. They'll probably say they haven't got enough prisons to do it, but if they just simply started doing that, people might be dissuaded from making the journey.
So exactly, this is what I don't understand. The government's argument for spending so much per capita when it comes to the Rwanda policy is, yes, very few migrants will end up on those planes if the planes ever take off. But the headlines it will make, the tweets and the social media posts it will generate. If you've landed in the UK and now you're on the way to East Africa, is supposed to stop people in their tracks and think twice about trying to make that journey. Wouldn't it be cheaper just to turn a boat around? I mean, yeah. It has the impact. Wouldn't that actually be cheaper? And also it sends a message to the French as well, who we have given a lot of money to. They're supposed to be intercepting what is a 3-mile stretch of coastline to stop these boats from coming across, and they're clearly not up to scratch when it comes to doing that. I could, bandy about potential accusations that there might be some degree of French collusion in all of this. But, Britain is constantly so worried about appeasing every other country on the planet, appeasing our neighbours in Europe, appeasing whoever it may be in some multinational organisation, the head of this charity and that. But the whole time we're doing this, lives are being lost. Lives are actually being lost because human traffickers continue to exploit human cargo, and it is a grotesque system. And the Conservatives keep saying, well, we need to stop it. We need to stop it. It's evil. It's the traffickers who are at fault. But the one thing that could actually make an impact, they're too scared to do. That's
the trouble, isn't it? Because the whole economic and migrant sort of asylum seeker system is built upon an old-fashioned model. It's not built upon highly trained and highly mechanised gangs, you know, highly weaponised gangs as well. I'm told that it's now more profitable to smuggle people than it is to smuggle drugs, and sometimes they're doing both.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are huge international criminal circles as well. Lord knows what other ties they have to other illicit organisations, terrorist groups, extremists, so on and so forth. And it's been a failing of Western policy for years, in fact, which has led us to this point. And I could list multiple examples, but I won't bore you to death with the details. But yeah, it's hugely complex and it's a big international problem. And when we put the legislation in place that we have today when it comes to people claiming asylum, we didn't have these huge migratory flows that we are now seeing. And actually, when you look at the people arriving in the UK, a vast percentage of those who are claiming asylum here have already tried to claim asylum in other EU countries and been rejected. And essentially, if we didn't have the deep blue sea to the west of us, then they would probably continue on the route and continue trying to claim asylum. Of course, we have the added incentive that we are England and English language is our national language, which a lot of people, wherever you're from in the world, have some grasp of and feel that they can get by in a culture where they can speak a little bit of the native dialect. But, you know, like you said, we do have a hugely outdated system and nobody actually is lifting up the bonnet on the car and saying what's underneath all of this. They're constantly doing window dressing, clickbait clips and sound bites and PR exercises and not really doing anything concrete that's going to really stop this problem. And the argument, of course, is out there that in some way the Conservative Party does thrive on this because even though they're not achieving their goals, even though they are catastrophically failing to realise stopping the boats, there is this sense, isn't there, that things would be much worse if it was under the Labour Party. And at the same time, they get to distract the whole population with boats crossing the channel, while legal migration to this country is over 500,000, which is totally
it's worse than that, Alex. It's not just over 500,000, that's net. The number of people who came in 2022 is 1.2 million. Now, we don't really know how many of those people will leave or how many of them will hang around. I mean, we've seen terrible cases of crimes being committed by all sorts of people in recent weeks, some of whom came here originally legally, some of whom originally came here illegally. And I know that we've got plenty of arguments for homegrown terror and homegrown, you know, criminals, and we've got lots of people who commit crimes. What we don't need is to import more of them from elsewhere, surely.
Right. I mean, I'm always very cautious when it comes to typecasting certain crimes committed by certain individuals, as everyone should be, because it can become quite a complex and two-dimensional, you know, putting a two-dimensional framework on something so complex is quite dangerous. But there is an argument there for saying that when people are coming from vastly different cultures, into your own, there has to be a process of assimilation and integration, which if people are coming through illegally in vast numbers is not going to take place. And as someone who has worked around the world, certainly things like gay rights, women's rights, these are, you know, the way that the sort of rights and standards we have in our society, our cultural mores are certainly not a reflection of what they have back at home domestically. No,
I think that's absolutely fair to say. Good to talk to you, Alex. Thanks very much indeed. Alex Phillips there, former MEP for the Brexit Party, now Reform. Of course, talking about the migrant problem. Why is it costing so much money? And when on earth is it going to stop? I'm talking about the illegal crossings, those that are made every single day by hundreds and hundreds of people.